and welcome to another edition of Health Solutions with Shawn and Janet Needham, where Team Needham discusses everything healthcare. I'm your host, Shawn Needham, along with my wonderful wife, Janet, and we are super excited to have Dr. Reed Davis back on our program today. He is going to be discussing food sensitivities. A few months ago, one of his proteges, Evan Transu, was on our podcast and kind of started mentioning this subject, and I'm like, we've got to have somebody on to talk more in depth about food sensitivities. So without further ado, Reed, welcome to our show.
Well, thank you so much. It's a pleasure to be here to talk about anything health, any health solution, but this is a big one. So thanks
It
for having
is. And tell us how you got into food sensitivity testing.
me. Funny, it's one of the first tests I started to run. I got out of environmental law conservation. I was saving the planet, and I started to get concerned more about people, including myself. I was getting older and in good health. I didn't want anything sneaking up on me. So I started working in a clinic to work on people instead, changing my education background a little bit. But man, one of the first tests I was introduced to that we could run in our wellness center that I could order anytime because it's not a diagnostic test. It's not a medical test. It's a blood test, but it's just for food sensitivities. So I started running this test on people. Lo and behold, got some miraculous turnarounds. Now, not in every person, and I can explain how it works. But man, did I start! Looked like a real hero to the first few people I tested. So I've added it into my repertoire, and now it's part of my training program. And boy, I just don't know what we'd do without it.
Well, tell us a little bit about, I think sometimes, is sensitivity the same as an allergy, a food allergy versus a sensitivity? Can you explain that?
Oh, well, sure. No, it's not an allergy because your doctor probably would have figured that out already if you or you'd have figured it out for
Yeah.
yourself. So there's this immune system and immunoglobulins and IgE, immunoglobulin E, just it's one of the 4 or 5 types of antibodies that we have, and it reacts very violently in some people to certain antigens, antibody generating constituents or particles. So, for instance, if you're allergic to a dog, you know darn well that when a dog comes in the room, the dander, pretty soon your immune system's interacting and your eyes are watering, you're sneezing, your skin's getting itchy and things. So that's a true allergy. And that's through the IgE part of the immune system. Well, there's other parts of the immune system, and they're not as sensitive. They maybe take 48, 72 hours to even respond. So how are you going to know? That whether it's a food or a chemical or something in the environment that you're sensitive to, if it takes that long to produce a response, a negative response usually, um, how are you going to know? And especially if you just eat it every day and it tastes good and you like it and seems to satisfy your hunger and you know all these other satiation comes from it. So what do you know? Turns out that some of these delayed reaction sensitivities can be very crucial to recovering one's health and to solving the mystery of all these sort of ghost diseases.
Janet, what questions do you have about food sensitivity testing?
Well, sensitivities I think are sneaking up on people is kind of where I'm hearing in the storyline of what you're talking about. And I could see how you could get somebody who's in your office that's doing many things the right way, but they can't get past this. And there's no other way besides testing to find out what that would be. And also, do they journal what they're doing? I mean, how does that look like? I mean, do you just say, I think I should test you, or, what's the picture?
Yeah, wonderful question because that gets down to dealing one on one with people. And our whole mission in life is to help others. And so if someone does come in your office and they're suffering, I'll give you an example. Lady, we had chiropractic, acupuncture, massage, nutrition, all kinds of things in our wellness center, including medical oversight. And lady comes in and she's getting chiropractic care. She's on about her 5th or 8th visit, I don't know. And I was just walking her back to the chiropractic treatment room, and I could tell something was wrong. She wasn't my client yet for nutrition. As a nutritionist and body worker, I served very well at that office, and I started being the lab guy. This is a long time ago, last century. Yeah, I mean, that's when I started. So anyway, one of the first cases where I realized how important, how significant these food sensitivities are, this lady comes in, wonderful person, and she's on about her maybe 8th visit, and I noticed something was wrong with her, and said, "What's wrong?" And her head was down, and she just, "Oh, I'm just very upset with this extra weight. You know, I'm 40 pounds overweight. It's been going on a couple of years." And me, the happy guy, I'm about to say, "Well, what are we gonna do? Let's work on it." No,
Right.
she goes, "I'm just so frustrated, Reed, because there's nothing I can do about it. I'm on a medication for the hives. I get itchy all the time." And so she had just been to the doctor for a checkup, and she said, "And I just went to the doctor." She's explaining why her head is staring at the floor and feeling so lousy. And she goes, "I was just at the doctor." I said, "Doctor, I'm really, really tired of being overweight. I can't stand this extra 40 pounds that she'd gained in 2 years. She had otherwise been quite fit and a happy person." And according to her, he said, "Well, you can be fat, you can have the hives, take your pick."
Mm.
Hmm.
And
Mhm.
again, I'm trying to get these words out of my mouth.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And she says, "And I told him how depressing that was." Well, that's very depressing. And he said, according to her, "I'll be happy to write your prescription for antidepressants if you want."
Oh,
Of
that'll make
course.
it
Yeah.
better.
Yes, you guys know where I'm going with it. So finally I
Mm.
got out. Well, I called her name. "Well, did you ever try to find out why you get the hives? Why didn't you just do that?" And man, her head snapped around so hard, I thought she wouldn't need her chiropractic visit that day. You know, what?
Right?
What do you mean? I said, "I'm
Mhm.
telling you, I don't know if I can help you or not, but there's tests to see for people with skin conditions." And so sure enough, we ran this. No, not just skin conditions,
Right.
so we ran this test. I recall distinctly, this is well over 20 years ago, that within 9 days, I saw her again 9 days after I'd given her results and changed her diet and some other things. So 9 days later, she goes, "Reed, I'm off the medication. I'm in the gym working out to a sweat and taking hot showers." Two things I didn't even know, but she couldn't take a hot shower and work out to a sweat because of even on the meds, she
Right.
got the hives, big
Yeah.
red blotches, including on her face and chest and neck and all over. So, wow, what a miraculous turnaround. I thought, hey, maybe there's something to that testing.
Yeah.
Right. Yeah.
So I could give you so many more stories. Migraine headaches. I once got a call from, not to belabor the issue, but these sensitivities can have all kinds of effects: immune system, hormones, the digestive system, your detoxification systems can get congested and things. We talk about anything you want, but I recall distinctly over 20 years ago when I was first learning about these tests, I got a call from a principal of a elementary school. "Hey, I'm Billy's principal. Billy is a completely different kid. He's behaving. He's not poking at the other kids. He's paying attention. His grades have shot up. What did you put him on?" Which to me is
Mm.
funny because obviously we didn't put him on anything.
Right.
We put him on a better lifestyle and
Yeah.
track for health because his mom had complained they want to put him on drugs. "I don't want to. What can I do?" "I don't know if I could help you or not, but let's get check for food sensitivities and some other things." But sure enough, same thing. Food sensitivities were very much involved in these people's problems, including, I don't know how many people with migraine headaches. So the food sensitivities are not allergies because your doctor would have figured it out, and you'd have figured it out because of the immediacy of the
Mhm.
symptoms. But these delayed reactions are quite insidious.
Now, what would you say? Can you recall what is the most common food sensitivity that you see?
Yeah, I could give you the top 5, and they
Yeah.
are eggs, soy, dairy, wheat or gluten, and egg, soy, dairy, wheat, gluten, and corn. So those are the top 5, and the rest are there's some that are close, and you might hear people argue that it's something else. But the dairy and grains and eggs and corn and soy, believe it or not, are the top 5 that we see. But it doesn't matter if it's you have a popular sensitivity or a very rare sensitivity. It only matters to you what you're
Right.
sensitive to, and that's why we run the tests, which I figured was common. Like, when would you run this test?
Yeah.
Anytime someone has a health problem that seems intractable, that's a chronic sort of ongoing downward spiraling, and no one else can figure it out, you rule out food sensitivities. You can run the test. Anyone can order it. You don't have to be a doctor, and so it's readily available. It's an investment probably of $350 plus whatever the office visit costs you, and that could vary. But it's amazing. And Janet, you mentioned journaling and that kind of a thing. It's really hard. If you eat 40 or 50 different foods,
Hmm.
and it's not one of the common items I just mentioned, you could sort of rule that out. Just get off those big 5 for 3 or 4 weeks and see what happens. Now, there's lots of other good stuff to eat, folks, so don't worry. You're not going to go hungry. But, you've got ways to sort of sort that out. And it's actually amazing.
How many on this test? How many food sensitivities are tested?
So the test I like best, it's called the mediator release test. It's not AGE. It's not even IgG. It's not AGA. It's not IgM. It's a different way of looking at reactivities through the blood. And the current test just went up to 176 foods, but no
Oh,
one eats
wow.
176
Mm.
foods. Nobody eats that variety of foods. I mean, I could eat steak and snap peas almost every night.
Yeah.
But you probably eat 25 or 30 foods very regularly, and they're probably included in this 176 foods.
And if you had to say what the least common food that has sensitivities is, what would that be?
That's a toughie
Yeah.
because but I've seen oddball things show up that are common foods, like carrots and onions. Matter of fact, onions are kind of up there. Onions and garlic, there's a lot of sensitivity to that. But you just take your asparagus, for instance. Who would be allergic to asparagus? Well, there are people. And again, I used allergy as a misnomer there, but it's sensitive. And here's another thing to consider: how many foods are you sensitive to out of 176? Because on this test, this is a key factor. If a question didn't come up, you still need to know. Do you have to have eaten the food? It's called challenging. Would you have to
Yeah.
challenge? Now, IgG, IgM, IgA, IgE, you have to challenge it.
Right. Right.
So with people have been to an allergist, and they you lay down with your shirt off, and
Right.
they put little pricks on your back. Well, they're putting the antigen directly into the skin, so that's a challenge. The other challenges would involve eating the food. If you want to know if you're sensitive to bread, have a sandwich, and then get the test. If you haven't eaten bread in 3 years, the test could show negative because it's not raising that immunoglobulin, that IgG or whatever it is you're
Right.
measuring. So you could have a false negative. With the MRT test, it's if you show sensitive, it doesn't matter if you've eaten it or not. The answer is don't eat it.
I
If you
see.
look at the
Okay.
test, there's 10 things on there that I've never eaten that. Well, good, don't. And
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah.
so because it doesn't have to be challenged. The test
Yeah.
alone is the challenge.
Now, how many do the people? Do you ever retest somebody, or is it just a
Oh, heck
one
yeah.
time? Yeah,
So,
and why would you
so
retest
this,
somebody?
well, because these things can change, and what we notice, I was gonna mention this. The number of sensitivities also tells us something about that person. So if that person has a whole lot of sensitivities, I've had people with 40, 50 sensitivities, and that comes in as a part of the discussion of, do you have to challenge? No, this will tell you if you would be sensitive. So you could have 40, 50, 60. I might have seen 70 different um, sensitivities in someone, and they're a sicker person, compared. The
Yeah.
average person might have 9 or 12 or 18 sensitivities, and get off that stuff. Let's see what shakes out. And we run other labs, of course, but this it's a ruling out. And if someone has 40, 50, 60 sensitivities, you'd hope like hell, and it happens regularly, that as they start improving gut health and digestive health
Yeah.
and
Mhm.
the intestinal health and just overall health, that their sensitivities would reduce. Now, if they reduce, that's good. Here's more you could add to your menu,
Yeah.
but um, they could also change. And that's the odd thing. It's just the way the body works. You have 14 sensitivities, Mrs. Smith. We're going to do some gut healing here, work for a couple months, whatever. We actually expect people to get off the foods. I know I mentioned 3 or 4 weeks. That's just the start. You absolutely should stay off those foods for 90 days.
Mhm.
And then we can retest and see if anything's changed. And usually there are some differences. It's just the way it works. And so that's not a bad thing or a good thing. It's just part of the management of oneself. So the answer to your question, absolutely we retest.
And sometimes, you got to wonder if, especially somebody with a bunch of different sensitivities. I mean, obviously, probably they've got some other health issues going on, a lot of inflammation in their body, so they are sensitive to a lot of things, probably more than just foods, honestly. Because you mentioned eggs being a big one, for instance, and really, I mean, if you look at us evolutionarily speaking, from generation to generation, generations back, I mean, eggs have been a staple in probably almost every culture. And so, really, we should not be sensitive to eggs. So, there's some health issues going on that need to be fixed if you're sensitive to eggs, in my opinion. Do you have any comment about that?
That's very observant. And you'd think that, hey, my grandfather ate eggs and his great 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 grandfather to the 500th power ate eggs.
Right.
We're egg eaters. And that doesn't matter because there's other things that weren't in those ancient times. All the environmental that have
Right.
changed our health, they've changed the way we function, they've changed. The body just can't handle the current environment. If you remember where I started in the 90s, I was in environmental law and saving the whole planet, doing a lot of, you name it. But so things are different now. And there may have been some caveman that was also sensitive to eggs. I
Yeah.
don't think
Right.
you could extrapolate this or that. But the fact is, today a lot of people are. And something else you mentioned is really important. So, this is all back in the day. Almost everything I teach now in my course is based on what I learned in 10 years in the office. I mean, I was a busy clinician. 10 years. I ran thousands of labs on thousands of people and said, here, this is what I found. Now, what do you do about it? You change your lifestyle. I'm really not a physician. I'm I was in the clinic, a nutritionist who ran labs. Now I teach a course in lab work. The point I'm trying to make is that I looked at a lot of labs and more than most people, and then instructed people on what I would do if I was them. Don't eat this anymore if it was me.
Right.
But
Now,
you know
on
what they
these,
do?
oh,
I
go
mean, let
ahead,
me, let me just say that
please.
what I noticed is they would come back and say, I got off the XYZ and I feel better. But I also noticed other things about my environment. This is something I think Janet alluded to, was there's other things in the environment that would be equally sensitive to, and they start paying attention because you paid attention to your food. You notice, oh, I feel better when I don't eat this. What else is in my environment? Household cleaning products, personal
Yep.
care products, furniture, paint. You name it. Where you work, if you work out in an industrial shop somewhere, hey, when you took off for 2 weeks for a vacation, how did you feel at the end of that 2 weeks? Oh, fantastic, man. And then as soon as I went back to work, what happens?
Mhm.
So, or even just going and I have a doctor friend in Australia. One of his prescriptions is go live in a tent in the woods for 2 weeks and see how you
Okay.
feel after that. Now, if you don't get eaten by something down there,
Yeah.
if you don't get a snake bite or punched in the
Uh,
nose by a kangaroo or something silly,
mm,
uh, people feel much better when they get out of certain environments. And that
Yeah.
tells you something. That tells you something very much related to food sensitivities.
Yeah. It's environmental stuff. Um, so on the food sensitivity testing, is it a positive or a negative, or is there a scale?
That's a great question too. So every single item they test for is gradated as to how reactive it is. And so some foods are just minimally teeny tiny bit reactive. Well, they're safe, and then they get a little more reactive, a little more reactive, little. So there's actually a little bar graph for each item. And when the bar graph gets long enough, it's horizontal in this case. It can do it vertical, a lot of ways to report things. Who cares? But when it gets beyond a certain level of reactivity, we'd call it a danger food. And then there's the ones that go up and then they change the color from green to yellow. And then they change to red when it gets beyond a certain threshold where, hey, we know this has got to be causing inflammation, whether it's, creating migraines or rashes or joint pain
Yeah.
or indigestion or, all these other kinds of bad reactions. It's contributing to your downward spiral, your
Absolutely.
chronic stress related downward spiral, lifestyle based problems. And so, yeah, the degree to which that's happening is the degree to which you might be remedied should you eliminate all of those foods.
Right.
And so, there's the green, yellow, red to answer your question. And we tell our clients just no yellows either. Why take any chances?
Yeah. Yeah.
yeah.
Right. Absolutely. Yeah. And it's almost I don't even know how to say it, but it's almost, why are we so surprised that food can change how we feel so much? I mean, we act like it should be a surprise, but it's just not. I mean, we're putting things in our body that fuels us, and nutrients and vitamins and minerals that are in that food. Why should we be surprised that what we put in our body can really, really change our health?
Oh, it does surprise some people, and that's
Right.
a surprise to me and you. Like
Right.
the people are surprised how it affects us. But if you think about it, what do we do every single day besides get up and get out of bed and maybe hydrate ourselves that it can have that much of an effect on our health and overall health, total health, not just one area or another. And people are amazed, and it leads to a discussion about food. What are the required elements and things? I love talking about that too. But in terms of food, what you do 3-4 times a day, eat right. Boy, you eat the wrong things, good. I mean, not good. Eat the right things, good. But you
Yeah.
eat the wrong things, you're gonna pay. You're
Yeah.
gonna pay, even if it's just say the glycemic index, or too much fat, or whatever it is. You're gonna pay.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think some of us know, I know for myself, when you speak of gonna pay, I know there's certain things that if I eat and I still choose to eat them sometimes, I'm gonna pay. But it's also a reminder why you don't do it very often. You know,
Yeah, I got
um,
one too.
now I'm gonna put you on the spot. on this one. Have you ever seen somebody that has a sensitivity to red meat?
Oh yeah,
Okay.
sure.
All right.
Yeah. I have a good friend who every time he tests that same MRT test that I'm talking about, beef comes up. So
Okay.
when he comes over, I'm a steak man. I love my steaks,
Right.
and I know how to cook them. I'm a griller from way back, and people love my grilled filet mignon tips, and things like that. I can cook anything, but man, not for him. Nope. And every time he tests, because we keep hoping, answer one of your previous questions, that might go away, and it
Yeah.
might.
Right.
So and his wife is one of my practitioners, and so um, she keeps working on his gut and healing the gut, and there's a long history there that's going to take some time, but I'm hopeful one day. But in the end, fish and chicken and pork, and he likes lamb and
Yeah.
things, and he's not sensitive to any of those. So you know what? Don't worry, Mrs. Smith. That's what I call every prospective client. We'll find you a nice meal
Good.
plan.
Yeah. Absolutely. So as we wrap this podcast up, Reed, what do you have a passion for?
Well, helping others and teaching. And right now, I'm doing a lot of research on some of the newer things that are out. A lot of it's around glycemic control, and blood sugar and uric acid. If the audience hasn't read Ron Perlmutter's book, Drop Acid, they're not talking about Timothy Leary. They're talking about uric acid, which
Yeah.
is basically a byproduct of too much sugar, and it's a independent risk factor for the top 10 diseases that kill people, including things like dementia and heart disease and these kind of things. So I'm really always passionate about helping others, the environment, of course, but man, some of these new labs and developments and research are very exciting.
Yes, it is. So, as we wrap this podcast up, what is the best way if somebody wants to find out more information about these food sensitivities? How do they find that?
Well, they should go to fdntraining.com/health solutions. So, we do what's called functional diagnostic nutrition. We're in 50 countries. It's referred to as FDN. So go to fdntraining.com/health solutions. And we've got, I think, a free gift for you there that will introduce you to more information.
That's awesome. Well, I so appreciate you being on the show today, Reed. You have helped us to realize our goal, which is to educate and empower individuals to take charge of their own health. So, stay on the show. Afterwards, I got a quick question for you off air.
Okay, Shawn. Good job. Thank you.
Yes, thank you. And listeners and viewers, thank you for tuning in to Health Solutions with Shawn and Janet Needham. Tune in Thursday for our midweek podcast, 8 a.m. to 9 a.m. Actually, it's 6 a.m. Pacific Standard Time, I believe. Stay tuned for the update on that. Jennifer Woodward is going to be talking about losing weight during perimenopause, something that we talk about all the time at Mose Lake Professional Pharmacy since we specialize in hormones. So you don't want to miss out on that Thursday midweek podcast. Thank you, listeners and viewers, for tuning into Health Solutions with Shawn and Janet Needham. Thank you.